Research nowadays is stating that cases of ADHD are increasingly high, well, growing more and more, exponentially high, whatever people want to call it, but they are somewhat on the rise. Now, 40 years ago, cases of ADHD weren't much, they were extremely rare. So the question is, what would it be that ADHD cases are so much more on the rise? There was a Romanian scientist that came back from the USA and held an interview on a, well, obviously non mainstream media channel, and they presented a lot of facts about the COVID shots. And more important than that, they stated that they've been adding a lot of chemicals in even your food, the water you drink, and all sorts of things like that that have a lot of influence on how you behave. She gave a lot of ideas about bio nanotechnology, which has been in the works for from around the 70s. Now, I've been saying that, well, experimentations on humans have been going on ever since the 50s, but, well, I'm guessing some people will also present that idea of mine. I don't know, it simply came out of the nether. And well, up till now, maybe people would call me a false prophet or whatever, but I'm not here to prophesize things. And the point is, these experimentations have been all linked with one purpose: to play with human DNA, find out how it functions, and more importantly, how to sabotage it. Now, if you look at George Soros, he's been saying that what he calls the fourth industrial revolution is the nano industrial revolution, where you create nano machines that are capable of controlling human DNA and inflicting you either a disease or the symptoms of a disease even through your telephone through simply watching your telephone screen, and the nanoprobes in your body will receive some sort of signal that will start triggering certain symptoms. You may not necessarily have the disease, but you know how they handled the pandemic. Well, it's easy to simply make a lot of the people manifest symptoms without even having the disease, right? Now, if we look at other details, even the transgender people, they have been a result, more of an indirect result of these experimentations. Thanks to those pills, contraception pills, I always forget what they're called, but a research stated that, well, once they are eliminated from the body, their influence on the environment is also toxic. And even male fish, some male fish started having female glands as well because of the huge influx of these substances into the waters as more and more people started taking them regularly. Because if you look at the USA, at least 30% of the population is on prescription drugs, which is kind of an alarm. Because when you end up being dependent on chemicals, well, you're kind of gonna have a chemical life. A chemical life is just like something, you know, artificial, more or less. It's not natural. It's just something that tries to replicate the natural, and you never know what the true influence will be. Because when's the last time that modern science actually told you something that is actually true? ADHD cases. I haven't been honestly truly interested in ADHD and reading about it, but my system tells me that it is deeply linked with an idea of survival. Those people's brains seem to be very active, hyper active, not necessarily hyper focused. I'm guessing they can focus on something specific, but at the same time they can swap from one idea to another. And a typical ADHD behavior is when they want to go somewhere, and in the meantime they either forget that or they start doing something else. So they start doing A, but well, they swap directions towards B, and then probably they end up in location C. I'm not sure if this is specifically something of ADHD, but people call it that it is a possibility. Now, I'm not a scientist, but well, spirituality showed me that you can research things by bypassing what people usually do. Science nowadays is all about blowing billions of dollars upon some research that would show you the results that people even 1000 years ago would know. If you look at ancient civilizations or even old civilizations like India, you look at China, even in the Arab world, there were so many of these things that were known. And well, in Europe, you could look at the Celts and other older civilizations that we may call barbaric, right? And they knew a lot of these things that these people prided themselves with just because they blew billions of dollars that were printed anyways. They didn't earn that money anyways, or they earned it just by keeping people impoverished. And well, ultimately, that money being printed, it doesn't have much of a value anyways. Society is giving that money the value anyways. So when it comes to ADHD, I associate it with a terrible idea of survival. Someone somewhere there at a very low level is still entrenched in an idea of survival, of lack, of wanting to do this and that. Because when you're afraid, you're in a way in a similar state like ADHD, because you're going to try all sorts of things, but you're not necessarily going to be focused specifically on one. Now, a lot of people say that ADHD specializes in making yourself unable to focus for too long. See, focus is not something that a lot of people have since birth. Most of the people can't focus more than 6, 7, 8, 10 seconds straight. Focus is something that you practice in time, be it that you have ADHD or not. Now, the problem is when you're taken as a child to a doctor, probably that doctor is not necessarily much of a doctor, probably they're, what do you know? Maybe they're some kind of idiot with a diploma, but let's say that the doctor is right and they say that you have ADHD. Now, as a child, you're already programmed because you're seeing adults give you titles, so you're going to wear them as a crown, and probably even to a certain extent be proud of that. Now, we all know there are successful streamers that have ADHD and they seem to be handling it somewhat okay. They seem to be even entertaining and such. But it doesn't matter much whether you have ADHD or not in the streaming world or in the world of entertainment. It all matters whether you're capable of supporting your ideas and being, let's say, in a way funny. But mainstream entertainments and streaming entertainments are basically free entertainment in the end. You can't have too many expectations of it, anyways. So when it comes to ADHD and the such, all I feel is that spiritually those people have lived previous lifetimes of extreme lack and poverty. Nowadays, people being kept deliberately in the such, they will give birth to children who are also gonna be finding it much easier to dive back into these mind frames, because once you have a certain karma that has you convinced subconsciously that you're not worthy of much, you're going to live in an idea of survival. When you live in survival, you're not going to be far away from ADHD. Now, when you also have this boosted by all sorts of chemicals that make your brain and your nervous system irritable, when you're irritated, can you focus on something? Well, it's kind of hard. And when you're irritated, you can't focus, right? When you can't focus, you're going to do one thing and you're going to end up doing something else instead. Probably you're going to forget about that in the meantime and you're going to end up doing the third thing eventually. So it's easy to be labeled as having a certain thing, and then suddenly, you're gonna wear it as a crown, as a badge, because especially when you're young, it's easy to get programmed that you have something. See, if you are taken to an idiot medic and they give you a false idea, let's say they say you have AIDS, but you don't know how AIDS function, right? You will consider that you'll have AIDS for the rest of your life, probably, or until you simply have an idea that, well, let's take some samples and let's see whether this is true or right. There have been such cases in the world. People thinking that they've had something for 20 plus years, and then they were proven the exact opposite, right? So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You're appreciated, take care, and well, this being said, Enjoy life. Ferenc Board signing out.